right, so I am extremely excited to have the opportunity to be able to share our second overall podcast in our success stories series. And today I am very blessed to speak with my friend Jamie. Jamie is an individual that when she joined the program, she was in a very unique place and very different than, say, some of our other success stories. She's going to really be able to share and dive in, not just what appeared to be a very victorious overall path so far, not just in her career, but in what she was earning and achieving as a job seeker. But really, she's going to be able to lean in and be able to share a little bit more about her mindset, how she worked through those items, how she utilized different tools. And so the overall theme today that you're going to see is really about emotional intelligence as a job seeker. So that's the introduction, of course, of what we're going to discuss with Jamie today. But who is this magical Jamie, and what is all that she has to offer?
Mythical creature.
Yeah, this amazing human being that I get to talk to today, and who I've been blessed to be able to form, I would not just say a working relationship with, but someone who I truly value as a human being and as a personal friend. So I'm excited to have you here with me, Jamie. And so let me give you a little background about Jamie, and then I'll let her fill in the cracks, because we always like to introduce each person. So first of all, Jamie has a very impressive background. She spent 19 years with Verizon Wireless. She's been a part of regional and national teams, including massive rollouts for product, client services, and revenue operations, just to touch on a few. She's worked with the highest brass that was associated with Verizon during her tenure there, and she can drop names like nobody else. And she got to be in rooms that I was jealous that I get to be in all the time while I was at Verizon. So she's got some pretty cool friends as well. Now, where she comes from now is she currently works at Access Communication, and she is the team lead over their overall product marketing. So, Jamie, I know I just scratched the surface on how great you are from a career perspective, but is there anything you would like to add in?
No, just, thank you for definitely having me here today. And I had a phenomenal opportunity to not only work client services, but regional and national go to market. That's how I did some of those launches, which helped give me that background in product, services, customer at the forefront, as well as sales teams, in addition to really kind of honing my skills into what is good, better, best, not only for sales, but for customers. Absolutely. And I'm getting the opportunity to do that now at Access, really kind of diving into what their process and programs are for products, how it's going to look for good, better, best moving from this point forward, and how we show up in the marketplace.
There's a couple parts of that are very, this is very Verizon-ese conversation, which I love.
It is.
Takes me back, right? So I love hearing some of that. And I'll share this about Jamie. So Jamie is someone who I truly do identify as a certain characteristic. She's one of those individuals that, and I'm going to use this analogy, she's like a bulldog. And that is not in any form of a negative connotation. That is truly out of just an amazing representation of how she's a protector of others. She truly is thoughtful in how she does things. She understands the depth of the importance of really truly being loyal. And so that 19 years with Verizon mattered, and that will matter in the rest of our conversation today. So Jamie, yeah, you're truly one of those individuals of the people who are blessed to know you and can get into your core of your circle. It is such a unique experience to be lucky enough to be there. So excited to dive in deeper there with you too as well. Okay.
Yeah, me too. Well, let's get into it, Steve.
Let's do it. Let's dive in. All right. So first, let's talk about this. When you joined our program, from the outside looking in, most people would appear that you were victorious. You were getting into late stage interviews. You were really right on the cusp. And most people would think, just from looking at your path and what you were able to accomplish as a job seeker, that you were just a domino away. You were just a piece, one small segment away. And so most people would think with all that success, you would have a really great mindset just accomplishing that last piece. So maybe give everybody listening as job seekers a little bit more sense of where you were. And I think it's going to relate to a lot of job seekers who've been in your shoes at that point.
Absolutely. So I made the active choice to leave Verizon, which was huge because it was definitely like a breakup. And I had the opportunity early on when I left, like less than 30 days, to interview with another large company. And I completely bombed that interview. I was not mentally or emotionally ready or in that spot to be doing that interview. And it took me going through that to realize that I wasn't. At that point in time, I decided to continue looking at jobs, but I was looking at them like differently. Where can I fit in like a niche perspective? Everybody said you need to have your top 10 companies. My top 3 were things that I knew I couldn't get because I wasn't willing to move. And so I was looking for things locally where I could fit in, where I can make a difference, connecting with people, not just, products or services or platforms. So going through that, like, it really had to take the mindset of asking yourself the tough questions. Like, you may have your top 10, but can you get to your top 10 right now? Additionally, yes, I was getting first round, second round, third round, fourth round interviews. And, to get to fourth round, like, you have to be doing something right. But I wasn't getting across that goal line. So really, when I came to the program, I was defeated. I was upset. I don't want to say broken, but I wasn't in a really great place because I'm like, I'm getting there. What am I missing to get across that finish line? So I was in a place where I knew how to get there. I just didn't know how to close it.
And I think there's a lot of job seekers that have been at that place. I was interacting with one actually late last week that was sharing very similar concerns. And so I think there's a good group of individuals. And I know for us, we had discussions about how you had to go through those struggles in order to really, truly take advantage of the program. So share with me and everyone else why you felt as if you would have joined our program early, you wouldn't have had the same success as joining late, because some people would think that would be the opposite.
No, absolutely. I think that going through all of those different interview types. So, your first HR check the box, can I put them through to the manager, going through your manager interviews, like having those interactions. I felt really good. I felt really positive in those moments. But then when I was getting the rejections or the no, I was taking them harsh in the moment and maybe for a couple of days. And like, I was going to keep grinding, but then I would look back a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, and realize it was probably this sentence, or it was, maybe the way that I approached this question. And that's how I dynamically changed the way I was showing up to get more second rounds and leading to a third round. It was having the knowledge that if I came to the program too early, was I just going to take in what you were saying and actually do it? Or was it going to sound like noise? I came to your program after I'd gone through some stuff with LHH, taking the best things that I liked out from them. I went to my local university, University of New Haven, where I'm a master's graduate, and I used their career development department, got my resume rewritten by them and LHH. I went through a couple different job fairs with career things. And when I came to you in this program, I literally took the best of all the advice that I was given by that point. And it actually then started to click and make sense what was going to work for me. But I had to take those moments and realize, like, everybody might be saying the same thing, but what was that one piece that stuck out and finally had that light bulb moment? It was very much boutique for me, where I knew that all of these experts knew exactly what to do, but what was going to work for me. And it took that time and that space for when I came to you guys.
Yeah, see, I love that. And I want to make this very clear. And we'll clearly state a few things that we recognized along our journey together, particularly you and I, as we did some one-on-one coaching and kind of deep diving into that process. But I want to make sure one point is really made here. What I love about the program that's been designed is it really is designed to meet you where you are. We've had individuals who have made it that are brand new graduates out of college, and individuals who are in their late 60s, and this is the last run. It really is designed to be agnostic to who the individual is, other than if you take the foundational tools and you utilize them, then you'll learn how to fish and not just even a fish. And I think that's one of the things that you said to me that was most interesting in our conversation, because it led us to us self-discovering how the transition from paragraphs to bullets helped you. So can you give me give everybody a little bit of, because I know that's a small thing, but I felt like it was a huge unlock, even though it was a little moment. So talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go into a new segment. Absolutely.
So when I came to the program, there is some guidelines that come with the program and some classes. They're like, hey, take these classes. And there may even be an order. I have to let you know that I was a rebel and I did not take them in the order. I took those classes in the moment that I was in. So if there was a negotiation class in that first week or two that I came into the program, I didn't take it because I was nowhere near a negotiation. But with a class that I did take was, second round and how you're prepping, what it is that you're doing. And that led my conversation to you, where I told you, I'm prepping huge pieces of paper with like paragraphs of how I should say it so it resonates with a recruiter or a leader. And you're like, can you break it down into snippets? Can you switch it to bullets to make it more impactful? Can you just make it so that there's one or two things in your example that are going to stand out? And then at the end of it, can you flip it into a question back to that recruiter? Having that slight change from knowing your example in a paragraph form and like not trying to memorize it and sound like a robot to making it into bullets made it more conversational, and it pulled up faster, like in the cache of my brain, like, oh, this is the bullet. Like, how am I going to phrase it? And how am I going to move this forward? And ask a question after that to put it back onto my recruiter.
Yeah, and you're being a little bit, you're not giving yourself enough credit. One of the things that I thought you did amazing was once you had the concept of how to ask powerful questions, you were one of the best at it. So don't take that away, that power away from yourself. Your ability to listen, and I want to make that very clear for our listeners too. You truly intensely listen. Maybe that's from your background and some of the intense training that I know that we had at Verizon, where it was all about listen to the other individual and talk a lot less, so that when you do talk, it has impact. And I think you did that so flawlessly, right? So I think that was a big moment as inside of this process. But let's go one piece further, because I want to think about the emotional management aspect of what you did. And let's talk about going back a little bit and sharing the traveler's example, because I know that was huge for you and I to talk through and then overcome that from that emotional intelligence as a job seeker. So maybe share a little bit there, and I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely. So I was in an interview track with Travelers Insurance, really big here in Connecticut. And I was going through a recruiter. I had gotten through my second round really successfully with a hiring manager. They were setting me up to talk to some peers that would be in with the role. And 45 minutes, an hour before my actual interview with the peers, I got a message from my recruiter that the call was canceled. So immediate, deflation. I text back. I'm like, okay, is it going to be rescheduled? As I'm waiting for a response, I'm getting changing my clothes, like I'm going to go run some errands or something. And then 15 minutes before the call, yes, it's today and it's for a different role. So immediately change back into my interview clothes, like, okay, which role is it for? They tell me which role it is. I'm mentally trying to prep for that, Google some questions that maybe I can ask the interviewer really quick. Interviewers get onto the call and I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. My recruiter said that this is for not the original program role, but it's for the IMC role. And they're like, yeah, no, this is definitely for the program role. And I'm like, oh, so sorry. I apologize. My recruiter must be wrong. And they're like, okay, let's wait for the other peer to get on. I just want to make sure this is definitely for the program role. They go through that. I say it again. And immediately it was like the second person was turned off because I was questioning what the role it was for, trying to answer some questions. You could see that they were calculating my answers a little bit, and they apologized that the recruiter had gotten it wrong, and they were a little bit dismissive. At that point, I was already off my game because I'd tried to switch tactics, make sure I had the right questions, and I just felt myself slipping away through that interview. At the end of it, I knew I was not getting on to the second round, and I knew I was super successful and I was prepared for the program interview. And that one action or item just got me off the ledge. I couldn't get it back. You know what I mean? And that absolutely crushed me because in the moment, that was the job. That was the job that I wanted. And coming away from that is really kind of what spurred me into coming into this program, because it was that opportunity. How do you stay in your game? How do you stay in your mindset? How do you correct in the moment to let that not bother you? And how do you have the answers in order to get past that? And as to why I came to the program.
And what I love about that is the concept of diversity, right? It's diversity of thought. It's diversity of having that diversity shift your mindset. And one of the core principles, not just in the program, but we believe that is trained throughout the program to carry into the next 30, 60, 90 days of your next career to become an impact player is that flexibility. And of course, we teach that as reflection, discovery, and execution. That's a principal training. But in reality, everybody kind of molds that differently. So, because I know you're a molder of things that are different, I think this is a perfect way for us to roll that same concept in. You mentioned that you didn't follow that linear track. You mentioned that you utilized other resources to build your own process.
Absolutely.
We foster that, we encourage that, but what I'm interested in is, how did you then take that experience and then also utilize the community inside of what we built through the Discord and through other relationships? How did you take your nonlinear approach and then pull the community in involved as well?
Sure. So one of the main things is, your network, how you're showing up online, how you're showing up in person. And it's going to be no surprise that I've expressed thoroughly that I am very uncomfortable with showing up online and trying to make those kind of connections. I'm more of a people connection. So as I came into the program and I befriended some of the people in here, Brandon, Amber, Scott, as we became friends, I would LinkedIn message them, hey, how are you doing? How's your job search going? And then that led to phone calls, text messages, things like that, just being mini supports for each other. On the flip side of that, with the personal connection, there are some communities where I then found like Zoom calls in order to do networking, where you can physically, get on a call. There's a topic of the week. People put what jobs they're looking for, where they're from. And I would pick 3 to 5 people off of that call to LinkedIn connect, and then to further connect on a Zoom meeting, or here in the state of Connecticut. I also did face-to-face job fairs and networking events just to kind of build on my superpower of I'm a people connection rather than using the computer. So really just kind of bringing it all back together. On Discord, you can find me randomly being like, hey, I have a connect for you, or awesome job, like, cheerleading people that way, and just making sure I'm staying connected with some of those personal connections that I had made in order to be a champion and a cheerleader and take part of my superpower, if you will.
Yeah, and I got to say, you leaned into that fully and holistically, and you're actually kind of the poster child, if you will, of that's what we're looking for out of a graduate, right? Someone who has achieved the successes that they're looking through the program, and then we foster this heavily. That free community inside of Discord is designed so that people can reach backward and pull forward. This is a difficult process in all of our lives. Not everybody's in a financial place to even pay for membership at $60 or $59.99 a month. They can't afford that. And so the idea of the Discord is that you can help people even if they can't financially necessarily help themselves.
For sure.
I love,
and every little bit helps. Like it just takes one kind word, no matter if it's in a job search, if it's in a grocery store and someone like breaks something, one kind word can change a whole situation. So anywhere that somebody can help.
Yeah. And value creation is screaming from your lips right now. And I think that's so important. So that gives me a little goosebumps to know that you're still doing that at the grocery store in particular, right?
For sure.
So I know we talked about, kind of shrinking some of those bullet points down, or the paragraphs down, into say bullet points. And we talked about
books.
Yes, they were big. They were big. But you also talked about, using the emotional intelligence aspect to use the right words, being more flexible, and more allowing yourself to have the curiosity when those questions come up, either by them or you engaging in that course. Talk a little bit about how you did that, how you formulated that, and where did that all come from?
Sure. So I'm naturally curious, so the questions kind of came easy. You know what I mean? But finding the opportunities to insert your question while you're having that conversation with a hiring manager or in a panel or just at all, really, what it could even be with the recruiter, can be difficult and overwhelming because you're trying to cache, okay, what are my experiences? How do I bring these up? And what I found is I often deflect with humor, or I often try to spin it in something that people can relate to or they can visually see when I do ask those questions. So any of you who go and look at my LinkedIn, it says I like to move the mountain. I absolutely love the challenge of somebody telling me you can't do this. I will prove you wrong and move that mountain. So within the job interviews, I may ask, well, what does it look like for your top person to move a mountain in this situation? Like, so that they can understand, like, there's the boulder. How did your top person move it? Or for instance, someone asked me if I were to pick any movie character, who would I be? And honestly, I was prepped for what animal would I be if, for my personality. So I flipped it on them and told them, I did not prepare for what movie character I'd be, but I could tell you what animal I would be. And that totally formed a different type of conversation and gave me the time to like really think, okay, what movie character can I put up to show my personality to them?
Yeah, and I remember us having the conversation around the pause and the power of the pause, right? And you not only adapted that, but I think your connection then, which made you special, your ability to take a concept that we would discuss on one meeting and then instantaneously connect it to another conversation, even if it was from a workshop or one-on-one, and then string it together in a way that fixed and worked for Jamie was really impressive. And I know you know that, we've talked about that before, but I want everybody else to hear that is, you would take, for instance, the idea of taking that deep breath to slow down just because you know the answer, but you also know the power of allowing the other person to catch up with you, right? You are an incredibly fast moving individual. And I know that is something that you have a superpower in, but you utilize the pause, not just for yourself, but used it for them. So huge tip.
It a lot of times was for me too, because in those situations, my brain's a mile a minute and my mouth is even faster. So I had to very much, as I was going through some of this, not only with like Steven, but my LHH counselor, as I was doing interview prep questions, I was answering, and it was like the micro machine man. I basically could have told you your terms and conditions in like 2 minutes. So the power of the pause was to kind of decompress. Okay, I know this answer. How am I going to start it? What am I ticking off, and how are we going to complete it, and what question am I going to ask back? So taking that experience and adding in the question back to your interviewer really kind of changed the game and how I was showing up and showing how active I was in participating in the conversation and how active I was with my interest into the company.
That's awesome. And I know one of the major reasons why you joined was because you wanted that assistance to close out that last round, right?
Absolutely.
And so I want to kind of paint a picture here, and then I want you to add color. Okay, so I'm going to draw the picture. You add the color to it.
All right.
One of the things that we figured out, right, was that you were giving great answers at the end, but they didn't necessarily link throughout all the relationships that you had built throughout the interview process, right?
Right.
So one of the things that was really, again, we're going back to the linking of these different concepts and ideas back together, is this also then gave you the empowerment to negotiate in a much more efficient, but also you kind of set the stage as negotiation the whole way, right?
Oh, for sure.
Right. So you see where I'm going now. So what I think is cool is your ability that we talked about the program, you added the pieces of the program, and then you used that negotiation section that I know you didn't join for the first couple of weeks. No judgment.
No judgment.
But then you utilized that as soon as it triggered for you into the conversations with Access, and tell me how that looked from your perspective, and where did that ultimately land? Because it definitely was a very fair negotiation, and both parties, I think, truly won. So tell me how you got there.
Absolutely. So throughout my time with interviewing with Access, I was an out-of-state candidate, knowing that there were in-state candidates that were applying. So I made it very transparent that I understood that I was an out-of-state candidate, and that I would not take any offense or anything if they went with someone internal or within state, because that was going to be what was flexible for them. So I showed them, the flexibility and the understanding when I was speaking to them. As I brought through opportunities within my conversations with them for first round, second round panel, and even throughout my presentation, I showed them what I can bring to the table, but also acknowledge, what would this look like if I was on board because I am out of state? What would this look like for an employee who may not be local? Making sure that was in the forefront of their thought process, that if they were going to bring me on, that it was very important that I had clear standards, so that when I got to the negotiation table, they first said 4 days in the office, and I was like, that's just not going to work for my lifestyle. And we had discussed this previously. So just kind of having that within the whole process, acknowledging, where I might be on a back foot for them because I wasn't the candidate that was in state or internal, and letting them know, I'm aware. Let's get this out on the table. Let's be very transparent about it. So that when it came down to, their offer and how we would started our negotiation from 4 days, I got it down to 2 days. And then, we then started talking about expectations for team and the actual salary. So it made it an easier conversation for me because I was very transparent when I went through the whole process. And then they already knew the expectations. It was how they were going to test me with my limits.
I love that, and the term that I like to use and we use in the program is anchor, right? We were anchoring on certain standards, right? And the reason why I think that is so important for everybody to hear is just because a job is out of state, just because it's not the quote unquote perfect match for you, does not mean that it's not the right job for you in the moment, right?
Right.
The key here that I want everyone to be encouraged by is there's so much noise in the market, and there's so many opportunities for you just to have fear or doubt or just push something aside because it's not right. If there's a piece there that makes sense for you, I encourage people to take chances. You were interested in this world for multiple reasons. We won't get into all of them, but you were very interested in this world because they could do some things for you that you were interested in helping build your next steps of your career, right?
And that comes back to having the intelligence of knowing what it is that I was interested in right now and potentially what I wanted to go to in my next career. Like for those people who are looking at jobs that might be out of state, this is where you have to know what your minimum viability for that to work, or what your minimum viability is to move forward. And that goes back to just having those personal check-ins with, is this something I'm willing to do? Is this something that I can do short-term, long-term, or how is this going to play out? You don't have to be a fortune teller or, predict any of the future, but for in the moment, what is this job going to give you that's going to serve you? Like what benefits, obviously outside of medical and dental, but like, is this going to level you up in a skill? Is this going to level you up as a leader? Is this going to bring you to a whole new skill set that can get you to your next location?
Yeah, and what I thought was really cool, and this is, I know that individuals will pay attention to say things I post on LinkedIn or videos I post. I get it. People like to comment, right? But you were interesting because you actually, instead of being a part of the negotiation class originally, you took a post that had the breakdown of how we teach negotiations before you even had a negotiation, and then you used it, right? So it was neat to see that you filled in the gaps that were not necessarily from the full-blown training, just from a post, because you understood the other aspects of it when it came to the pause and creating the bullets and asking powerful questions and truly building value creation moments. Again, one of the reasons why I was so excited to have this conversation, because you really do use emotional intelligence, not based on a program, not based on one person's thoughts, but based on your foundation of what you have a firm understanding. Go back to that bulldog mentality. You know what works for Jamie. You know what Jamie's superpowers are. And you also understand that with every superpower, there's always some form of a weakness. And because you understand.
And I think too, it was all of those failures that, or what I perceived as a failure. So not getting to the third round, or getting to the fourth round and not getting picked, or even, just really having those weeks where I got no traction on any of the jobs that I applied for, or like having all of that and purposefully taking stock. This journey is hard enough as it is. Okay. And taking that stock is a hard thing to do, but looking at the week and being like, okay, I applied for X amount of jobs. I didn't hear anything. Are my expectations too high that I was going to hear from them? Or has it been 3 weeks and like really they're through their process? Like having the clarity and the, it's adulting. Okay. So maybe there was 100 people who applied before me and I probably shouldn't have applied for that job because there was 100. Or did I really meet all of those qualifications, or were I banking on getting a conversation? Like having those tough moments really sucks, but it brings you back to also knowing that in this grind, you don't need to do it every day. If you are not prepared to do it on a Tuesday because you woke up in a funk, take Tuesday off. Take the morning off, come back to it in the afternoon, have those self check-ins. And that's what was able to get me when I got to this program, having those aha moments, like you said, where I took a post and was like, okay, I'm going to read this first. Their class isn't for another week. I'm going to ask questions in the class from this. Like, just, it's okay to have those days. It's okay to take the time off, like grind it out when you feel really good, but take the pause when you need it.
I love that. And I think the coolest part about that is the concept of 1%, right? And I know that's not, it's underlying in the program. That's more the executive side. That's the one-on-one that you could get out of the program. But really that idea that every single day, it's not about becoming a marathon runner the next day when you choose to do this.
No.
It's about just getting up sometimes. That you don't have to go for the run, go for the walk. Get out of bed. Do something, do some squats, whatever it takes to get better as a marathon runner. Do that little 1%. And then on the good days, go for the mile run, like run as far as you can, right? And build up that momentum and that stability. And I think you did that, and we're an exceptional, not just individual for yourself, because you are, but you are an absolute incredible individual for everyone else in the program and continue to be. And I really do value you, again, not just for all your hard work, but because of who you are as a person. So it's really cool.
I appreciate that. And I'm definitely here to help anybody who needs it. You know, shoot me a line, shoot me a LinkedIn, anything, anywhere I can help. I'm willing to do so, because I've been in your shoes and I'll be in your shoes again one day. Like, it's not, no job is for forever. We all know that.
Yeah. And I thank you for that. And as I recap, I'll share just a couple things, and then and obviously we'll close down here, Jamie. And again, I want to thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Obviously,
thank you for having me. This has been great.
Well, good. And we're everyone hopefully is a little blessed based on what you shared, not just because of where they might be, but because of where they're trying to go. And that's really important that everybody hears that, is that we're all going to show up differently. And it's not about that you're different or you're behind or you're ahead. It's really about what you do after that, once you actually start to show up for yourself and really communicate.
Absolutely.
Communicate your value and who you are. So I'm gonna do 3 takeaways. You know me, I love my 3s, so I'll do my 3 takeaways.
Do.
So one thing is, first and foremost, like I said, really get to know who you are and what you're trying to accomplish as a job seeker. You did that so well. You came into the program, you understood what you needed, and you articulated that well, and then you executed on those things. So knowing what you need is huge. And in the places where you didn't, you asked questions, you were vulnerable, you were open about it. And I think that's a huge one. So that's number 1, is make sure you know what you need and you go execute upon those things. Number 2, I think that what you did was so great is, once you figured out number 1, and when you went into section number 2, was you didn't stop pulling from other places. Just because you're a part of any one program does not mean that's the end all be all. I don't claim that our program is the silver bullet. It might be a wonderful program that I believe helps a lot of people, but that also needs to be what you take from that program is what is necessary for you and where you are, right? And then the third piece of this that I think what makes you so special is your ability to recognize how to help others. And by helping others, the satisfaction you gain from that built momentum for yourself.
Absolutely. Like it's inherently, that's one of my languages, is like acts of service and help. So it doesn't need to be your language, but even giving a kind word or like, hey, I found this job, and sending it over to someone, definitely that small gesture can be huge, and you just never know.
Oh, yes, so true. And so again, I really thank you. I appreciate you opening yourself up for assistance, right? I think that's huge. And if this story resonated with you, and you're like Jamie, and maybe you're struggling at the end, or maybe you are working on some of those confidence issues that you might need. Jamie is obviously a resource. She said to connect. Please connect with Jamie. That would be amazing.
Absolutely.
If you have interest in wondering more about who we are, right? Of course, you can follow the links that will be outside of the podcast here. You can join us in the free Discord. And I truly do believe that you should be a part of us before you ever think about investing in this, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're just moved and you're excited and you want to get started, then please, yes, contact myself.
Jump right in.
Join on in. We want to help you, and we'll be more than happy to get you amongst this community that is truly designed to help each other. And whether it's a hiring partner that you connect with, maybe it's Tina or myself that helps you, or maybe it's even a previous actual alum like Jamie. We all truly do believe that we are here to be of service. And if you join this program, just know that we'll expect you to be of service of others too. So I appreciate you, Jamie. Thank you again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here and glad to help.
Good. And of course, in 2 weeks, we'll have our next overall series. And the fun part about this one is this individual, won't use their name just yet, but this individual is going to share with you how to join one of the more larger corporations and how having a connection internally, it can truly help you when it comes to negotiations. So good little segue into the future of what we're going to do next. But thank you again, Jamie, and thank you to everybody who's listened.